My name's David Morales. I'm 47, former military. I was discharged exactly 10 years ago after serving for 7 years. These days I live in the suburbs of Oregon and work as an electrical maintenance guy for a local company. The pay's not great, but it's steady. If there's work, I go. If not, I hang out in my garage sorting tools or fixing random stuff. And honestly, that's enough for me. My wife's name is Lena, same age as me, 45. She works from home, pretty private person. She's not close with the neighbors, doesn't have a circle of friends or any of those afternoon tea groups. She just lives quietly, stays under the radar, the kind of woman who never makes a scene and never leaves too many traces. We got married when I was 28, right around the time I left my mechanic job and enlisted. Those first couple of years were like most young couples. Small rented place, tight on money, but warm and real. Then I joined the regular army. After that, our time together basically got boiled down to my leave days. I'd get 30 days off a year. We'd still share a few meals, still sleep next to each other at night, but I always felt like I was living a borrowed life, one that wasn't really mine to keep. Lena never complained. She always had this way of making things look fine, even when they weren't. In my 4th year in the service, I got deployed for a 12-month mission. No home visits that time, barely any contact. The area was a blackout zone, no signal, limited access. I got a few short emails, weeks apart. Same usual words of support from Lena. Nothing ever felt off. After that deployment, I stayed 2 more years, then finally left the military. I was 37. Came home ready to rebuild, get a stable job, live a life I actually recognized, be with my wife under a roof I could touch every single day. What I didn't know was that the moment I came back, things had already shifted in ways I couldn't see. But nothing looked wrong. No red flags. Lena was still Lena, gentle, kind, quiet. Everything looked fine. But that's the thing. It only looked that way. 10 years after I left the army, on what seemed like a completely ordinary afternoon, clear skies, soft sunlight, something happened that made me stop and ask myself, who the hell have I actually been living with all these years? If you've ever trusted someone with everything you had, and all they gave back was silence and lies, stick around till the end of this story. And if any part of it hits close to home, don't forget to hit like and subscribe. You're not alone here. After leaving the military, I came home with the mindset of someone who just wanted a peaceful life. No big dreams, no need to start over. I got a job as an electrical tech for a local company. Steady, on time, no one paid much attention. The job suited me, quiet, but useful. We didn't have kids. Not because we couldn't, but because at one point I made that call. In the early years after we got married, we did talk about it. Lena seemed to like kids. Every time we were at the grocery store and saw toddlers in carts, she'd glance over and smile, just a little. But me, I had just joined the military. I didn't know what life was going to look like. I only got 1 month off per year. That meant 335 days where she'd have to handle everything on her own if we had a baby. No family nearby. No help in the middle of the night. Just her. I'd seen plenty of army wives break down under that weight, and I didn't want Lena to be one of them. I told her, maybe we should wait. She didn't argue. Just said, I understand. Then folded her magazine and went to make tea. A few years later, after I got out, we brought it up again. Briefly, but it didn't go anywhere. I had gotten used to the silence in our house, and maybe she had gotten used to not expecting that conversation to go anywhere. So we lived like that. A house just big enough for 2 adults. No chaos, no mess. Evenings with soft music. Weekends smelled like baked goods or fresh paint from the garage. I used to think, maybe we made the right call. She told me she volunteered at a community center near the church every morning, helping with life skills classes for immigrant kids. Said she ran a small group, teaching crafts, basic English, or just sitting with the kids so they wouldn't feel so alone. I'd seen her packing a box of crayons, colored paper, and old picture books into her backpack. She really did seem sincere about it. But now and then, I'd notice little things that made me pause. A pink shoebox for a little girl tossed in the trash. A receipt for cat ear hair ties and glittery clips. A child's backpack hanging in the garage. Clean, untouched. The first time, I didn't ask. The second time, I started answering myself. She had mentioned the kids program. Maybe the stuff was for them. Maybe someone asked her to hold on to it. It wasn't that strange, just slightly out of place. She always came home on time, sometimes even earlier than me. She'd cook, ask me what I felt like eating, share a bit about her day, but never too much. Like everything else in her life, Lena only ever showed me just enough to keep me calm. No more. I started paying more attention after one evening when I borrowed her phone to call a ride because mine was dead. She was washing dishes and pointed to her phone charging on the kitchen shelf. The lock screen was a photo of a little girl, maybe 10, grinning ear to ear, holding an apple, hair in pigtails. I asked, "Who's that?" She said the girl was her best friend's daughter, a single mom. She helped babysit sometimes. I nodded. It sounded believable. It even felt like something Lena would do. The woman who always helped in quiet, thoughtful ways. And I kept thinking, if something was really off, I'd know, right? But maybe, just maybe, when you want so badly for everything to be okay, even the most obvious things start to feel like just another part of normal. A few weeks later, I got a work order near that area. Small job, just a busted breaker in an old apartment. I finished earlier than expected. The sky was clear, sun soft. I decided to take the long way back. No GPS, no rush. Swallow Creek Avenue met me with that muted golden light of late afternoon. White-painted wooden houses, low roofs, not a sound. Faded mailboxes, grass creeping over the curb. I slowed down, didn't use my turn signal. And then I saw it. Lena's Toyota, parked in front of house number 14. Engine off. Windows slightly cracked. No one in the yard. No kids laughing. Just wind, and the soft crunch of my tires over the gravel edge. I didn't stop, just drove past, caught a glimpse in the rearview mirror. The steering wheel felt cold in my hands. Or maybe it was my hands that were cold. I couldn't tell. It wasn't anger, not quite shock either. It felt more like someone had gently tapped on a hairline crack deep inside me, one I thought had healed long ago. That night I didn't say anything when I got home. Lena was in the kitchen cleaning up. The faint smell of cream sauce hung in the air. Warm pasta, thinly sliced salad, water next to a folded napkin, just like always. She asked, "Long shift today?" I said, "No, ended earlier than expected." She nodded. We ate. No music, no TV. Just the soft clink of silverware against ceramic. She mentioned there was a new kid in her class, kind of stubborn but sweet. I listened, nodded, poured more water. Neither of us said much else. Later that night, after the dishes were done, I went outside to clean my shoes. The left one had dried mud on the heel. I took a brush to it, water dripping onto the bricks. It was cold, but not as cold as what was slowly forming inside me. A few days later, I was replacing a breaker in the utility room when Paul, one of the guys I work with, walked in, half joking. "Hey, didn't know you had a kid that old. You've been hiding her well." I looked up. Just stared at him. Paul chuckled. "Last week at my daughter's school, middle school over on the south side, they had parent-teacher conferences. I saw Lena there. She was with a little girl, looked about 12. They were sitting off in the corner, chatting with the homeroom teacher." I didn't move, still holding my insulated pliers. Paul kept going. "Didn't recognize her at first, but then it clicked. Your wedding photo. The one you showed me years ago when we had that beer after fixing the burned wiring. I knew it was her. She didn't seem to recognize me. Just nodded and walked off. I don't remember what I said. Probably something like, 'Oh, huh.' Soft, like dust settling. Paul didn't press. That night, I came home like usual, but I didn't go inside right away. I sat in the car for nearly 20 minutes, hands resting on my legs, engine still running. Headlights aimed at the old weathered gate. I didn't imagine a confrontation. Didn't see myself yelling. What I did feel, for the first time in many, many years, was a question take root deep in my chest. If that little girl is really 12, when did this start? And why, after all the years we've lived side by side, have I never even known that this child existed? Everyone has their own way of facing the truth. If it were you, what would you have done differently? I'd really like to read your thoughts down in the comments. The truth didn't come like thunder. It came in the form of a shift schedule. The weekly work assignments landed in my inbox at 6:15 a.m. I opened it while chewing the last bite of dry toast. My coffee was still hot. And on the third line, the address hit me like a punch. 14 Swallow Creek Ave. I just sat there, finger hovering on the screen, unable to scroll down. It wasn't shock, not exactly. It felt more like a stuck door finally cracking open. I typed a reply, "I'll take this one." No one asked why. I got there at 9 a.m., sharp, like always. Parked the white van across the street, got out, stood still for a few seconds before climbing the front steps. The house looked the same. Small, neat, quiet. Nothing unusual. Except for this sinking feeling that I was about to walk into a life that wasn't mine. I reached out and pressed the doorbell. A soft ding echoed inside. Normal. But this time, it sounded like it rang forever, like a stone falling into a bottomless well. The door opened. Lena stood there. She wasn't dressed for work. No button-down, no laptop bag. Just a thin gray sweater, soft cotton pants, house slippers, hair a little messy, a dish towel still in her hand. The first thing in her eyes wasn't guilt. It was fear. The kind of fear you see in someone who's been waiting for this moment, but still prayed it wouldn't come. I didn't move. My head was clear, sharper than it had been in years, but my chest felt tight, like someone was wrapping a steel cable around my heart, pulling it tighter with every breath. From somewhere inside, I heard small footsteps. Then a young voice, light and bright. "Mom, is Dad home?" Each word stabbed somewhere deep I didn't even know still existed. I didn't look inside. I didn't look at the child. I only looked at Lena. She stood there, and in her eyes I saw it plain as day. There were no lies left to cover this, no stories left to act out. I nodded, slowly. "Hi, I'm here to fix the wiring." My voice sounded oddly calm, not because I wasn't hurting, but because I knew if I let any other words escape, I wouldn't hold myself together. Lena stepped aside, barely whispering, "Please, just let her not know. I'll explain. Just not now." I didn't respond, just walked in. But in my mind, one thing rang loud and clear. I'm not here to scare the kid. I'm not here to break a home. I just need to see something real. The house was small, tidy to the point of discomfort. There was the smell of freshly baked butter cookies, a ukulele propped against the wall. On the table, markers, a couple of children's books, the kind with stickers and pop-up flaps. I walked slowly through the living room. In the corner, a pair of little girls' shoes, tiny, purple canvas. Next to them, a pair of men's dress shoes. My heart didn't race. It beat slowly, one beat at a time, like my body was deliberately dragging out each second to give my mind time to catch up. Lena pointed to a light switch in the corner. She said the light had been flickering since yesterday. Her hands trembled slightly, but her voice didn't. She was trying to stay calm, just like me. I nodded, opened my toolkit, started unscrewing the panel. Didn't look at her. Didn't ask a thing. It felt like standing in a tank slowly filling with water. Not loud, not sudden, but I knew, eventually, it would rise past my head. While checking the wiring, I caught sight of a photo on the shelf. Not framed, just pinned up with a magnet. Lena, the little girl, and a man. I recognized him, a former neighbor. He used to wave at me a few times before I left for deployment. The light was fixed. I closed the box, filled out the maintenance slip, and handed it to Lena. She took it, with both hands. The same hands that once held mine at the altar, now trembling like they no longer knew what to hold on to. I didn't say goodbye. I didn't say, "I know." No accusations, no questions. Just one sentence, a full stop. It's done. The system's running fine now. And then I stepped outside. It was colder than it had been that morning, but I didn't pull up my coat. I got in the truck, shut the door, and looked into the rearview mirror one last time. The front door was still open. Lena was still standing there, watching. She didn't call out to me, and I didn't turn around. Because we both knew. Everything that needed to be said was already sitting in the silence between us. That night, everything in the house played out like nothing had happened. Dinner was the usual. Pan-seared salmon, the one Lena always made at the start of the week. Vegetable soup, a little pre-mixed salad. I still did the dishes like I always did, wiped down the sink, folded the kitchen towel neatly. Everything was tidy, familiar enough to feel suffocating. No one brought up the morning. No names were spoken. No child was mentioned. We were like two adults, quietly holding up the roof, just trying to keep it from collapsing, at least until dinner was done. Around 9 p.m., Lena came into the living room. I was sitting there, under the soft yellow light, staring at a newspaper I could no longer read. My eyes were open, but my mind was somewhere else entirely. She approached without a sound, stopped just at the edge of the couch, stood still for a moment, then softly asked, "Can we talk?" I didn't answer, just folded the paper and set it aside. A small gesture, but enough for her to know I was listening. She sat down across from me, hands clasped tight, eyes slightly swollen, but no tears, like she'd already cried all she could. Now all that was left was facing what needed to be faced. She started talking, soft voice, even. No dramatics. She spoke about that year, when I was deployed overseas. 12 months. No leave, no phone, no contact. She knew I didn't want to go. I knew I didn't want to leave her. But duty was duty, and we were used to not having choices. At first, she thought she'd be fine. But day by day, the house grew so quiet it scared her. No laughter, no dinners for two. She felt like she was fading, untouched, unneeded, forgotten. Then Mark moved in, the new neighbor, divorced, lived alone. He started helping with little things, light bulbs, leaky faucets. At first it was polite, then it became familiar. One day Lena fainted in the kitchen. Mark was the one who found her, took her to the ER. Stayed there all night, no questions, no explanations, just showed up when she felt utterly alone. After that, things shifted. There wasn't a clear line that got crossed, but she knew. Something had changed. They grew close. No plan. Not out of a desire to betray. Just something private had formed between them. A space that, even as her husband, I no longer stepped into. Then she found out she was pregnant. 3 months into my deployment. She panicked. Mark suggested she move in with him, but she said no. She said she didn't have the courage to walk away from everything, wasn't ready to ruin it all, was too afraid to tell the truth. So every time I came home on leave, she would bring the child over to Mark's. She'd stay there for a few days, like the kid had never existed in our house. When I left again, she came back and resumed her role as a mother, like she'd never left. I sat in silence, didn't interrupt, didn't react. It was like I'd become part of the chair I was sitting on, just another piece of the furniture. After I left the military, things got harder to hide. Lena and Mark decided to sell his house and move somewhere else, far enough that I'd never run into them, but close enough for her to visit every day. In the mornings, when I went to work. By 6 in the evening, she was always home, on time, like a ritual no one questioned. I remember asking one single question. So quiet I barely heard it myself. "Why didn't you tell me?" She was silent for a long time, then said, "Because I didn't deserve that kind of pain. Because I had always been kind. Because I stood by her during the worst times. And she didn't have the strength to be the person who shattered me. She thought keeping the two worlds separate would keep everyone from getting hurt. But in doing that, she lived 2 lives, and made me belong to neither. She told me the girl's name is Ella, 12 years old, loves books, loves drawing, obsessed with order and logic. She doesn't know I exist, and Lena doesn't plan to change that. She just wants her daughter to live a peaceful life, with no added confusion from grown-up mistakes. I nodded, not because I agreed, but because I understood enough that I didn't need her to keep explaining. She said she wouldn't ask for forgiveness. She knew she didn't deserve it. She just didn't want to keep lying anymore. I stood up. No smashing things, no shouting, no ripping through what was left of this house. I just needed to stand, to step out of the air that felt like dry rope tightening around my ribs. I looked at her and said one thing, short, quiet, but final. Thank you. Not for telling the truth, but for finally stopping the running. Then I walked to the bedroom, closed the door, softly, like a breath. That night I didn't sleep. I just sat there, listening to the clock ticking, each second slicing through old memories like a dull knife, one layer at a time. Outside, the sky slowly brightened. But inside me, something had started to go dark, quietly, but steadily. And I knew it wouldn't be long before I had to walk out of this house. Not because I was being pushed out, but because I deserved to live in a place where there are no more secrets. I didn't speak to Lena for the next 3 days. We still had dinner together, still set the plates in their usual spots, still washed dishes, mopped the floors, folded towels like always. But everything between us felt like two housemates sharing a space, polite, civil, but never touching the air between our shoulders. On the fourth morning, I took the day off, put on a button-up shirt, gray tie, dark jacket. I drove to the law office I'd made note of years ago, back when I fixed a circuit in their building. I told them everything, straightforward, to the point, no extra emotion. My lawyer's name was Jenkins, older guy, quiet, sharp eyes. He listened, didn't interrupt, then asked one question. What do you want out of this? I didn't think for long. I said I wanted to end things quietly. No lawsuits, no fights. I just wanted what was mine, to return to its rightful place. The house. We bought it before we got married. I paid the down payment. Every mortgage installment was in my name. We had no children. And Lena didn't have a steady income. She worked remotely, mostly on short-term contracts. There were no legal ties binding me here. I told him I wanted to sell the house and leave. When I got home, it had started to rain, lightly. Lena was sitting at the dining table, both hands wrapped around a steaming cup of tea. She looked up when I walked in. Didn't ask anything, but I knew. She already had some idea. I pulled out a chair and sat across from her. No need for small talk. I asked her, "What do you want now?" She looked at me, eyes tired, still holding the cup like it might break if she let go. She said she didn't know. Said part of her wanted to hold on to everything. Another part was too afraid to reach for anything at all, and she said, if I wanted a divorce, she would sign. I nodded. I told her I'd spoken with a lawyer. The house had been mine before the marriage, so legally I had the right to sell it. But I wasn't trying to kick her out like she was the enemy. I just needed her to understand. This was no longer a place I could stay. I said I didn't blame her. I didn't hate Mark. In fact, I was grateful to him, because at the very least, he was there when I couldn't be. But my heart, the part that once believed this was home, was no longer here. I told her she could stay a few more weeks if she needed time to get things in order. But after that, I would be putting the house on the market, and I wouldn't be keeping all the money. I'd split a portion with her so she could land on her feet. I wasn't doing it to be noble. I just didn't want to be the last cruel person in a story that had already broken enough things. That night, I started packing. I began with the things I rarely touched. Old pairs of shoes, a box of photos from my army days, books I knew she never read. I folded each shirt, each bedsheet, each small item I once thought would be part of forever. Now just objects, no longer memories. I wiped down tables, wiped the walls, pulled out the nails where photos used to hang. The house began to empty, little by little, just like me. A man slowly peeling himself out of someone else's life, piece by piece, inch by inch. No one cried, no one blamed. There was only silence left, settling softly between two people who used to be each other's everything. And in that silence, I felt strangely calm. Not because I wasn't hurting, but because I had chosen not to let that pain decide how I walked away. Lena left first, just like she said she would. No suitcases dragging across the floor, no tears, no final night as husband and wife. She packed only what was hers, a few sets of clothes, her laptop, some books, an old flower vase, and left the house on a Saturday morning. The sky had just begun to mist. I didn't walk her out, didn't look through the window. I just heard the car door close, the tires roll over the curb, and then silence. The house suddenly felt bigger, not because someone was gone, but because the pretending was gone too. I stayed there a few more weeks, just long enough to clear out the rest of the clutter, finish the paperwork for the sale, and quietly wrap things up on my own terms. I spent my last evening cleaning the kitchen floor, taking down the wall photos and folding the winter coat Lena once gave me for Christmas, years ago. I didn't take it with me, didn't throw it away either. I left it, hanging in the closet, like a memory that had done its job. Early in the morning, I locked the door, left the keys inside a sealed envelope for the real estate agent. I stood on the porch for a few minutes. The street was still. The ginkgo tree at the corner was starting to turn gold. The house behind me wasn't a home anymore. It was just a place where too many things had happened, and now needed to start over with someone else. I drove away. Didn't know exactly where I was going. I just knew I had to go. I stopped in a small coastal town. There wasn't much, just a couple of family diners, a used bookstore, and a 24-hour gas station. But it was quiet, and quiet was enough. I rented a tiny room, just big enough for a bed, a desk, and a single burner stove. Every morning I brewed coffee, cracked the window open, and read the paper without thinking about yesterday. I don't remember Lena with bitterness. Maybe I don't remember her that much at all. And that's okay. One early morning, I walked out to the beach. The sand was cold and damp beneath my feet. The wind was soft. The sky a sleepy gray blue, not quite awake yet. I stood there for a long time. Not waiting, not searching, just standing, like the last man on stage after the curtain had dropped. And I knew I'd be okay. Not right away, but eventually I would be. Because sometimes the biggest turning point in life is knowing when to walk away. No drama, no begging, just quietly closing the door and moving forward. Thanks for staying with me through this story. If it reached you, leave a like, a comment, or even just hit subscribe. That way we'll know you're still here, quietly listening, just like I was.